Good evening and welcome to World War II News. Today, on May 7, 1945, Germany has surrendered to the Allies. General Alfred Jodl, representing Germany, signed an unconditional surrender. This act will hopefully put an end to the European conflict in World War II. But how did the Nazis invade France in World War II, and how was this conflict resolved? Well, it all started when the Nazis gained power. On September 14, 1930, the Germans elected the Nazis with Adolf Hitler as their leader. After that, on January 30, 1933, Hitler became Germany's chancellor. To give themselves even more power within Germany, the Nazis murdered Chancellor Dollfuss. On top of this, the German president Hindenburg died at a similar time. Arising from these events, in 1934, on August 19th, Hitler became the Führer of Germany. A Führer is a tyrannical leader in German. With his power, Hitler violated the Treaty of Versailles by introducing military conscription. A few years later, the German military mobilized. With this, they started invading. In 1939, the Nazis invaded Poland as well as Czechoslovakia. Many countries were invaded by the Nazis following this, and next on their list was France. France caught word of the attack, so they devised a strategy. They wanted to remain on the defensive in Western Europe while preparing their military forces more thoroughly. They planned to take the offensive 2 to 3 years after the start of hostilities, which are acts of warfare. The French also started using Maginot lines instead of trenches. A Maginot line is a line of concrete fortifications. The French military was also larger and more technologically advanced than the German military. But the Nazis also had a strategy. The Maginot Line was too redoubtable for a direct attack. Because of this, General Erich von Manstein proposed a subsidiary attack through neutral Holland and Belgium. A subsidiary attack is a less important attack, but it still has a purpose. The main blow against France would come later, through the Ardennes, which is a forested hilly area on the German-Belgium-French border. They wanted to use blitzkrieg, which is a German term for lightning war. This refers to using firepower to disorganize the enemy forces. On May 10, 1940, the attack began, and it was moving quickly. By June 12, the German tanks had broken through the main fronts along the Somme River. The Germans were moving closer to Paris. The British encouraged the French to resist at all costs, but the British government denied French requests for military assistance. This is because they wanted to preserve their resources for if the Nazis attacked them in Britain. Nearing the end of the battle, the French army had decreased to half its original size. French leaders decided it was better to surrender than keep fighting. On June 22nd of 1940, just 6 weeks after the start of the attack, France signed an armistice with Germany. An armistice is a formal agreement for the parties at war to stop fighting. This victory took many people by surprise. The French and other allies were devastated that they had lost this battle. It could affect the course of the Nazis' takeover greatly, as well as affecting the lives of people living in France. The part of France that was occupied by the Nazis was the northeastern part. This part of France had to abide by the Nazis' rules. There were forbidden zones in this part of France. In these forbidden areas, French war refugees were not allowed to go back to their homes. The forbidden zones were intended for German settlers and Nazi use. As well as this, the Germans stopped 80% of French food production. These weren't the only problems. According to Mail Online News, the Vichy government deported 76,000 Jews to German concentration camps where they were all killed. Another 14,000 Jews died in concentration camps on French soil. This is why the conflict had to be resolved. In December of 1941, Germany failed in an attempt to defeat Russia. Russia barely survived the attack, but became stronger after this. Germany, on the other hand, had pushed itself to its limit in the battle and became weaker afterwards. This, in a way, signified the start of Germany's defeat. After this battle, Germany would no longer be able to defeat Russia. On December 11, 1941, the U.S. joined the war to further ensure Germany's defeat. On May 7, 1945, Germany surrendered to the Allies, and the European conflict of World War II ended, including in France. On this day, General Alfred Jodl, representing Germany, signed an unconditional surrender. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on World War II News.